Okay, guys, what are we actually calling this? It has to be feminist.
But fun.
And bold.
And maybe a little rebellious?
Okay, the feminist files?
Nah, too serious.
What about femme frequency?
Nah, too techie. What about the F spot?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Definitely.
I like that. The F word, feminists.
Welcome to the F spot.
Yay.
Okay, Yande, right? This is a question for you. We were in the office and we were talking about, I think we're sort of like talking on how young women today sort of like deal with sexual reproductive health rights and sex and stuff like that. And so Tendai and they're like, oh, remember that Kablonga Girls song? And everybody else is like, what song? We're like, no, that Kablonga Girls song.
Which
I've got some goals to achieve.
Achieving dreams to turn reality.
Don't say you
And
don't know
you
this
don't know
song.
that
I feel like this is a test.
Yande!
I feel like
No,
pretending.
you don't know it.
Okay, sing the song.
It's basically, it was like a campaign around HIV and AIDS, and it's these like 5 girls who are rapping about like abstaining and staying away from sugar daddies.
Yeah.
And it's like this very catchy song, and they're rapping the entire time. They were like the TLC
I
of
promise
Zambia.
you, I've never heard this song.
Every young girl
Yande.
wanted to be them. I swear. They were in
Is
their
there a video?
uniforms.
Is it on
Yeah.
YouTube?
There is,
Yeah.
but obviously we can't play it because of
Okay.
copyright stuff. Okay, I think we just started talking. We didn't even introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so Yande, start. Even though I've introduced you.
Oh, I thought you were going to. I have to introduce myself.
Oh, should I introduce people?
Okay, I can do it.
Yeah.
Hi, I guess listeners. My name is Yande Kalengo. I'm a lawyer, feminist, activist, and I love to chat. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me to this space, and I'm excited to dive into it. I feel like we have conversations like this, but it's so exciting for us to actually like have them. You know what I mean?
Document them.
Yeah.
Document them, and like I hope I don't cringe listening back, but I'm so happy to be here.
And we're happy that you're
We're
here.
happy to have you.
And to our resident Gen Z.
Hi, I'm Hazel. I am the Education and Research Coordinator at Sister Foundation. So I sleep, eat, and dream research. I love it so much. But yeah, I'm just here to talk about my findings so far and listen to the wisdom of the what generation are you guys?
Doesn't matter. Just say the name.
Okay, I'm just here to listen to your wisdom and throw in my little Gen Z input.
Very important.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tendai. So I also work at SSF. Yeah. I live, breathe, sleep, dream feminism. So yeah, radical feminist, feminist specialist. I'm done calling myself a gender specialist. Don't do that. Yeah.
Is that
So
like a way
yeah,
to like
Tendai.
downplay? Like gender. I love that. I'm
Feminist
copying that.
specialist.
Feminist specialist.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Anne, and I am a feminist troublemaker, honestly, who I think some people have called me a witch, but only because I use feminism as my form of witchcraft. So, yeah I am just a feminist troublemaker. That's it.
I love it. Do you have a broom?
Yeah, I do, but I can't show you. It's actually here. You can see. So.
Okay, so I'm so sorry. First, I'm the odd one out, and I don't know that song.
Oh, no,
I
you
also
and
don't know
Hazel are
it.
together.
Yeah.
Oh, yay! Hazel.
Yeah.
My question is, what was the messaging, the actual messaging behind that song? Because you had these girls that were rapping, and they were like sugar daddies, and they have goals to achieve. So, like, what was the messaging back then, and how do you think it's different? The messaging
I
now.
think, like to understand that song, you have to understand the context of like the early 2000s, right? That was the time where there was like heavy funding around HIV and AIDS and STIs.
Yeah.
And the messaging then was like, don't have sex. Like, just don't have sex.
Abstinence.
Abstinence,
Yeah.
iliche, right? I remember there was even an advert around like these girls in their room. One is even holding a teddy bear, and it's around abstinence and stuff like that. But I think this has been a reason why I had stopped reading like African books at a time, because most of the conversation was that if you have a sugar daddy, you are going to get AIDS and you would die.
And you would die.
And it was always like somebody would buy you sweets you have sex with them.
Vanilla biscuit.
Vanilla
Yes.
biscuits. Yes. So I feel like that song, as cool as it was, I think on one part it was good because if you listen to some of the lyrics that they sing, right, there's a part where she's talking about like, what would I do with an old man? Like, I need to make sure that I am going to school. And then there's a part where this girl is even like in a gown and she's like, when I get my degree, when I get my what and stuff like that.
Right.
I feel like the messaging was around just making sure girls understand, but there was a lot of fear mongering that was
Yeah.
used.
That's true.
Like they did get most of the messaging wasn't, what it should be, but they did get one thing right, is that they started the conversation.
Yeah.
Because in the early 2000s and 1990s, AIDS was such a huge thing. Like even mentioning it, like they gave it different names because of the fear. So of course there was a lot of fear mongering, virgin power, virgin pride, abstinence liche. You can get it by doing shaking hands and all of that, but they did get the conversation started. Like that song made people comfortable to actually address issues around like all the sugar daddies and all of that. So it gave even young girls like a platform to actually start talking about it, I think. So that's one of the positives of the song, I guess.
I think what I liked the most about it was that it wasn't created in a way to sort of shame girls, but to shame the men who are going after young children.
Yeah, because at some point she's talking directly to the man, like he's in the car and she's bending over through the window, telling him like, "What am I gonna do with you? You're an old man." Da, da, da. I thought that was cool.
Just speaking about the positives, I think one thing for me is just it's girls rapping, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what is empowerment if it's not girls rapping at that time. So for me, it's like
we're saying though in their TLC bag because like the rap, the whole setup, but it does bring in like conversations around pleasure itself, brings around conversations around bodily autonomy. This is something that was being spoken about then, but like in this era, I don't know what you guys think. What do we think around speaking about pleasure and what it sort of does for what we're trying to achieve with like SRHR, with like safety? I don't know what you guys think.
I can jump in first. I also think that are we also saying that abstinence liche is just like old messaging? Are we just because we know people are having sex, right? And when we talk about pleasure and bodily autonomy and sexual reproductive health and rights, it's about breaking that taboo and being able to talk about it. So if I'm a young woman and I don't know what condoms are or I don't know what contraception I can use that's comfortable for me, how can I even keep myself safe? So I think we need to remove that stigma around talking about sex and kind of just be open without judgment and figure out what people like.
Yeah, I get that. But are we just talking about sex or are we talking about pleasure?
Are we talking about pleasure politics? But you know what I genuinely think? For me, like the conversation is around when we were growing up, there was this pandemic, right, of HIV and AIDS. And it was scary because there wasn't enough like awareness specifically for people. The stigma was really bad. And things are different now, right? Somebody can, have the virus and they can go undetected, they can go on medication, live long lives compared to like back then, right? Somebody had it and people were dying. So there was like this pandemic and they needed to like curtail it just like there and then, right? And because it was made with this very conservative line, they pushed the abstinence, right? But they pushed it to girls. The boys were given condoms.
Yeah.
Most boys' bathrooms, anywhere, universities, schools, whatever places, right? There were always like condoms for men. Condoms were free. The contraceptives for men were very free, right? Even the idea of female condoms was even
Because
like,
even
what
now,
are you doing, right? Even
yeah.
now, right? And so they pushed this conversation of like abstinence is great for girls, but like safe sex is great for boys. And so it brings in this conversation of how we now had like a whole generation of people where we were terrified of like this disease, but then we didn't know anything about sex. All we knew is that don't get pregnant and don't get HIV and AIDS, right? Without truly understanding there are other STIs. Sex isn't just about, pregnancy and having HIV and AIDS. There are different conversations around it. And so it brings out this question of we're in 2025 what does that look like for us as feminists as we push for, young people learning about sex? Where does pleasure politics come in? Are we pushing for people to be abstinent? Are we pushing for people to just have safe sex? Or are we now bringing like an honest conversation around sex? Like, yes, young people are having sex, but how are they having sex and how are they navigating that?
So I want to just pull us back a bit because the term pleasure and pleasure politics is coming up. So what does pleasure politics mean?
I would like to hear from Hazel.
Yes, Hazel.
I feel like pleasure politics is mainly about finding joy and comfort in your body, in sex, and the choices that you make regarding your body and sex. I feel like it also extends to how you present your body, like bodily autonomy, the outfits you choose to wear, how they might be regarded as too revealing, but that's something you find joy in. So it's not something that should be policed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also that you ask around pleasure politics themselves. Anne spoke about the fear that was there. I can only imagine what it was like having sex then, because there is no pleasure where there's fear. And
Yeah.
if we are gonna push for bodily autonomy, for pleasure, really, I feel like they work hand in hand with sex that is safe, because then your mind is at ease. Because I can only imagine. But also, what's funny is, you were saying they were pushing a narrative of safe sex for boys and for men and abstinence for women, and then I'm thinking, ish, who are these people having sex with? Because like these women are abstaining, it's virgin power, virgin pride, but there's condoms in the bathrooms. Like,
right.
what what are we actually pushing? So yeah, I feel like in sort of like reclaiming our like power and bodily autonomy, there's a lot of conversations we need to have around the safety of sex, so that then we can explore how we can have pleasure with our bodies, regardless of, like Hazel spoke about, dressing and just presentation. But there is conversations around safety, because they're quite a hindrance when it comes to pleasure itself.
And you, Yande?
I really identify with Hazel's point when she mentions joy. I think so many things associated with women in a patriarchal society is always toil, chore, like this movement of I'm a soft girl, I'm a baby girl, like women deserve nice things and we deserve a soft life, and I think that extends to the pleasure of sex and other things like that. So for me, it's really about finding liberation in sex or in other things, and just really saying who am I and what brings me pleasure, and how can I really advocate for myself. And I think just from a human rights perspective, once someone knows their rights, you're able to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. I believe people cannot be liberated without sexual liberation. If I have no full body autonomy, and I'm pretty sure somebody will be like, what even is body autonomy, right?
Break it down,
right? It's just simple, basic having control over your body, right? How you dress, who you have sex with, when you have sex,
whether you have sex or not.
Whether you have a baby. I feel like women are always boxed, right? Specifically our sexual journeys are very boxed. When you're born, your body belongs to your family, right? You are your father's daughter. Your family's daughter. How dare you?
Your family.
How can you embarrass your family? You've brought shame upon your family, right? Then from there, you transfer into the hands of a husband, right? You are your husband's property, huh? And after you're done being your husband's property, and now your children's property, right? True. And then you die. At what point are you ever yourself, right?
And for those who don't have a husband, they belong to the community. What morals are you showing the community?
The church.
You were
your
such
company.
an upstanding woman at work. Yeah. So, a woman basically belongs to someone from the time of
even
birth.
religion. Women end up also...
you have to be like in the church, or it's just always your body is in service of someone else or the community or someone. So at what point do you self-reflect and say, this is what brings me joy, this is what brings me pleasure? And I think that's what pleasure politics means.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that you spoke about how true liberation does not come without like actualizing bodily autonomy.
Can we
because
get
when you
that on a shirt, by the way?
Yeah.
Feels like
that
a
would be a
quote.
cool thing.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Because actually, when you think about it, the right to vote, check. The right to work, check. The right to education, check.
Check.
But ultimately, what this ties down to is if you do not have bodily autonomy, I could be having babies back to back and not be able to sit in a classroom or not be able to get that job or not be able to. So ultimately, the patriarchy has us, honestly. Liberation, actual liberation, will come when they step off our necks, honestly, and we're able to like have control over our bodies. We're able to decide what we do. And I think that's why it's essential for us, especially in the African context, to have conversations around bodily autonomy. I know people shy away from it because it goes against everything you've been
It's
taught.
taboo. I'm pretty sure there's somebody here saying, they're talking about
Oh
sex.
my gosh, how can they? I was joking with Tendai earlier about how like, should we be having this conversation? And it's like
Real.
that patriarchy sneaking up on you to be like,
True.
you're so programmed not to talk about sex as
Mm.
women. Like
Mm.
it's such a taboo. And I think that's why we need to have more and more conversations, because where do people get their information from?
Yeah.
If not from your communities of women.
Yes, Hazel, stop looking at me like that.
Where are you learning about? Where do you learn
where
about?
do you learn
Hazel,
about it?
Where do you learn about stuff?
Honestly, online, I feel like Google has been my friend for the longest. There hasn't been a lot of room, I believe, to talk about sex openly, especially if you're still like a young lady. As you say, it's like taboo. So I feel like Google's been my biggest asset, just going online, visiting different websites, different podcasts, different apps to gather all sorts of information, I guess. I do wish there was a more centralized place to find all this information at once, because it's been, tricky to go through all these different websites and all these different places to find information.
Yeah. And you know what's sad is that now in 2025, I'm sure like Google and all of that have even better information, but knowing that we do not have a lot of information that's contextualized to us
Mhm.
online makes it such a weird thing. If you are learning year 11 or year 12, most of the things you're seeing online are not really curated for you, or
Yes.
you can't really even picture it. It would be nice to have conversations with the people around us, find information that's put together by the people that we live with, because they generally understand your context. Because I'll be looking up online for maybe a contraceptive and I'll come across something that a Zambian pharmacy doesn't even have. Like I'll walk in and I'll be like, can I use this? Or things like the patch and all of those. And someone will be looking like at you like, what? But it's also because these conversations are not happening for us,
Yeah.
maybe.
It's true. I remember when I got diagnosed with PCOS, right? I was put on non-hormonal medicine for like 3 months, and I was told after that I needed to move to the progesterone only pill. And I kept going to pharmacies. I'm like, oh, I want this. And they kept passing me the combined pill. And the combined pill is horror for me because it means I will never stop bleeding, right? And I'm like, no, I don't need this. And the pharmacist like, no. This one has like, I'm like, no, I need like something that is specifically. I think I went to probably 10 pharmacies until I was like, you know what? Let me just spread some coins and go to links. And sure enough, the pharmacist was like, oh, you want this? He even started giving me like different options, because in my head I was thinking it's just one. So it's even just that. I think when people hear pleasure politics, or when they hear sex, or they hear body autonomy and sexual liberation, they just think these women want to be out here in the streets having sex. Yes, we do. But it's not
However.
just. However, like I feel like it's very complex, right? Our bodies are very complex, and just even something as simple as like our periods. You never know. Like when I was growing up, I would go 2 months without having periods, right? And I would be panicking because I'm like, is it a spiritual husband?
What's going on?
What's going on? I would be terrified to even tell anyone because like I wasn't even having sex, and I was terrified that if I told somebody, they were just going to assume I was having sex.
Exactly.
And I remember like going to like the school nurse. At that point, I was in boarding school, and it got really bad to the point where if I get into boarding school 2 months later, like I'm not having my periods. I only have periods when I get home. So I remember going to her. I was like, Auntie, this is what's happening. And she looked at me. She was like, oh yeah, your baby. It's the, the food, the weather. You like hormonal imbalances happen specifically when you're young, right? And then even when I was 24, it still continued, right? Where if it's colder seasons, my periods are nowhere to be seen. When it's hot, they're here like hotcakes, right? And I remember going to Marie Stops and I'm just like, so this is what's happening. And the man was like, oh, for your age, it's normal. But no, it had to get until it was really bad to the point where I was 30 for them to be like, oh, actually, you have PCOS.
Yeah.
Imagine if I had been diagnosed all those years ago.
And your life would have been that much easier.
Yeah.
And also, there is so much when you think about it. What hurts is the secrecy around women's bodies and everything that happens to women's bodies. We were talking about it earlier where we were saying the whole, like everywhere you look, there's something about sex. Everywhere there's something about pleasure. It's definitely not designed for women because, of course, it's focused towards the male folk. Meanwhile, the woman is put sort of like at the center of pleasure. A woman should give pleasure, so to say, in different aspects. But also when you think about it, when we're growing, we'd hear things around, and with regards to like our period, we'd hear, this person suffers from ichamumala and all of that. And when you think about indigenous knowledge, you realize that these aunties and these grandmothers knew that something would be wrong when it would be wrong. And they had these herbs and all of that. But also what the secrecy around women and their bodies was that this was information that they would really like guard and only dispense to the person who's opened up, or when it gets so bad that now you're crying and you can't walk. And then they'll be like, oh, she got it from sharing it. Chitenge. We all heard those stories, but they were quick and there would always be a solution and there would be herbs. And I feel like when I think about it, I'll be like, okay, that was probably like hormonal imbalancing, and those herbs would probably like sort something out, because I knew friends who were like, my grandmother made me this, and when I took it, everything stopped. My period came back to normal. And so you find that the secrecy around things like that really hinder what could actually be a solution. Because imagine this was something that they would say, if you feel like this or if you feel like that, it's not only because you touched a boy, as they would say, or speak to a boy. If you speak to a boy, you will stop seeing your period and all of that coded language. You'd realize that we could have built on sort of like that knowledge. And now it's slowly fading because you find people that would just disregard. But when you think about it, you're like, there was actually, those people are in their bag. Like there's something.
Yeah.
And you know what? I actually think like it goes back to even like the politics around pleasure, right? And you bring in colonialism. Yes, I'm about to be that person. But like, no, when you think about it, right? Currently, like PCOS, there's no cure for PCOS, right? Doctors will say, go work out. You could be skinny. And they work out, then what happens, right?
Yeah.
They will throw contraceptives at you. And contraceptives, like, they'll help you sleep, yes, but you'll be bleeding for days, spotting and stuff like that, right? Why haven't they not sat down with our grandmothers and aunties and said, you know what, African women, since you have the tea, like, you have the meds, tell us. Let's look into this. Because you're right, because when I started telling like my aunties that I was sick, everybody was like, okay, so I know this woman. I know this lady from Angola who can bring you herbs. Like there is medicine and it's African, but because it's African, it's not taken as seriously. And you know what? By the end of the day, you understand why these women are secretive with their medicines.
Yeah.
Because they've been demonized so much for using African traditional medicine instead of welcoming it into the science world, because these women are scientists.
They are. They are actually
No, they have a lot of knowledge. But it's interesting when you bring in the colonizer aspect, because I'm thinking people don't want to invest in African solutions or in like our own, for us to invest in our own.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a women's issue. Look at how we still have pink tax on sanitary products.
Yeah.
Look at how we still, any medicine or any solution that has to do with research into women's issues is somehow ignored. And I think there's a bigger issue around what matters to society right now and how women have to live in silence.
Yeah. It's also because the people who are signing off on those checks and the people who are signing off on what we're researching, there's 40 men and 2 women. And so they're just like, pink tax. I buy the pads for my wife. And these are the things that we hear them say all the time. So it's basically issues around bodily autonomy, SRHR, are like the thing that's sitting right in the middle of everything that is wrong, I guess.
All right. I feel like one question I really want to focus around is how are African women learning about sex in this day and age, right? Tendai, what's working for you as an African woman? How are you learning about
How
sex?
am I learning or how did I learn about sex?
Whichever.
It's if you're asking how I learned, it's actually funny. And I know we're talking about the sort of conversations we had with our parents, quote unquote, our aunties, because they're the ones who would give this knowledge, our aunties, our grandmothers. And then learning about sex then, or even something, because it wasn't even called sex. If I'm being honest, there was no mention of sex. It was that don't play with
It
boys.
was bad manners.
Bad manners.
But bad manners could be anything.
Anything,
so, where that
literally. So it was really like trying to figure it out. I think I remember some friends. I was quite young. The word sex, I think I probably heard it first from a friend. I don't know where she heard it from. But then I asked what it is and she said bad manners or that thing that we're not allowed to. But then now, I feel like now in this context, and Hazel spoke about Google, she spoke about the online space. It is a space where like women are learning about it. Well, for me, I probably speak about sex all the time with you guys and with my friends. So there's that as well, like learning
What?
about.
So then they were not your friends?
I said you.
You said you guys and with your friends.
What are we?
Right?
Yeah, so like we're constantly talking about sex and what's safe, what's not safe. What do you think about this? So there's those conversations that are quite important because then people are basically just speaking about the experiences and you are dissecting what you feel like is okay and what's not
Right.
okay. I probably think maybe what I thought was good sex, for lack of a better term, 5 years ago is probably different now. I don't know. Hazel, because you are the resident Gen Z. What's going on with learning about sex?
Honestly, I would like to think that people are as curious as me, but maybe not. Over the past couple of months, I've been doing a lot of research around how young African women are learning about sex, or where they're getting their information, what kind of information they have, what kind of information they also want. And it's been difficult to have those conversations because it seems like there's not enough information on the ground. Some of them don't seem as knowledgeable as they should be for people who are actively having sex.
Yeah.
They just seemed like they weren't, in the know, although they knew like, okay, yeah, I'm having sex, but sometimes it's safe, sometimes it's not. I just do it whenever. No thoughts of ovulation, how that may result in pregnancy and stuff like that. So I think we started out well, learning because of all the magazines and songs you're talking about. But now there's a lack, I think, in sensitization around safe sex, how to get it, where to get contraceptives, and all of that.
Is it because maybe for women, sex is something that happens to us? It's not maybe something that we actively have a say in?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm interested. Like, from a legal perspective, what do you think are like the barriers that prevent? Hazel has told us. I mean, it's been happening. And they're in our 30s. So
Yeah.
clearly there's no information going up to today that young people just feel like they just enter the room, sex happens, and they leave without truly understanding
Yeah.
like what's happening to their bodies, how they're having sex. So what are the barriers you think that African women face when it comes to sex?
I think that's such a great question. I love that Hazel touched on the cyberspace as a space where you research, you gather information, because it's private. I mean, you're not asking someone else. You're just taking your phone and doing a research. So I think one of the barriers we need to be aware about is some of the restrictive cyber laws.
Yeah.
You the way we think as society is quite patriarchal and restrictive. So our laws will also model that. So if you're sharing pictures, especially if it's organic pictures, what does Zicta say, or Zicta is for Zambia in specifically, what does Zicta say about the sharing of images, and how will that affect you legally if you're sharing unauthorized images? So I think people need to be very, very careful in, yes, you're being curious, but there's still this restrictive legal framework that might stop you from expressing yourself online. There was a good point on kind of like abortion laws. So for example, if you need access to a safe abortion, where do you go? Can you openly ask? Some places are very, very strict. So just being aware of the climate in each jurisdiction. Hayes also mentioned having all the information in one place. Is there such a thing? Currently, we need to explore that so that young women are able to be like, hey, I want an abortion. It's my body. Where can I get it done without the stigma? And also just financial restrictions. I think it was a side conversation where you spoke about trying to find a specific pill that you needed. You had the option to go to Link Pharmacy, like, oh, I'm just going to go to Link. But not everybody is financially liberated enough to have that option. So how do we ensure that young women actually have the knowledge, but we also have systems in place to kind of support them in their communities? Like at the local health friendly, youth center friendly or unfriendly, quote unquote, can I access the contraceptions that I need?
Yeah.
And then finally, I also think it's about knowing kind of like, this is a tricky one, what natural and unnatural acts are as per law. For example, if you're a young person and you're curious about masturbation, can you say that openly in your context? So just being aware of the legal framework and how you can navigate. But I also think finding safe spaces helps. You know, finding your community. There was how you asked Tendai, how did she learn about sex? We used to have a structure of an achimbusa.
I was gonna say, do they still do that?
How to have sex. Yes, it's from a male pleasure perspective, but now that we're thinking of women's pleasure, how do you make sure that women that are going into marriage are equipped to know what they like and all of that? So how can we change that?
Can I just say that
curriculum?
As a Lunda person, Lunda, we focus on our women's pleasure.
Woo!
Yeah.
Shout out to the tribe.
Very, very interesting. Very much focuses on women's pleasure. I think for like the way Lundas do it, if I'm being taught about sex, the partner also needs to be taught about how to pleasure me. So that's very like equal thing. But hey, who knows? Maybe the system has changed.
Yeah, but there is actual, like, I like what Yande said. There's actual conversations to have on the traditional side because, of course, we know this is something that used to happen. Is it still happening? But then how are they speaking about sex in those rooms? It's not something I think we should just discard, so to say, but it's maybe a conversation around what are they actually saying.
teaching?
Yeah, but just to like shamelessly plug. No, like, okay, so seriously, right? I feel like one of the things so we, for the like last couple of years, right, our work has been ensuring that we're providing access to information and people just basically know what happens, right? You know, we would have like random DMs of somebody saying, oh, my vagina has been itching for a week. What do I do? People don't even know things like yeast infections, right? They don't even know how it's because of your pH. Sometimes it could be even what you're eating, who you're having sex with. And you just say like, no, but I'm having protection. You could even get it from head, right? From oral sex and things like that. So basically what we decided to do was sort of create a one-stop center of information, but make it like digital, right? And so basically this is an app that has sexual reproductive health rights information. You want to learn about your periods. You want to learn about the types of diseases you end up facing because of like your menstrual cycle or because of your uterus, right? You want to learn about PCOS. You are pregnant, right? And you want to learn about pregnancy. You also want to learn about the laws in your country or in your region. You want to learn about STIs, anything that's regarding sexuality, pleasure, contraceptives, body, questions.
SRHR laws.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like questions that you have, but you're too afraid to ask anyone.
Yeah.
You're afraid of being judged. You don't know
Or
like what the
jailed.
context is like in your country,
It's bad
right?
manners.
Sometimes just even, I think what people don't understand is that young people sometimes are just curious.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they want to have sex. They
Yeah.
just want to learn about it. So we designed an app, which is the Feminist Spot app. And basically this app is your one-stop center for information. You click on it and it has all that information. And even better, we have like a period tracker in that app.
Mhm.
And under a period tracker, there's a section called Low-Key Stressed, where you get to like ask a question and say, this is happening to my body. I had sex and this is what's happening. And we basically pile up all your questions and we have like a doctor that answers that either on the podcast or our, blog post on our app. So it's something you should just definitely look out for.
That sounds amazing. Sounds like the solution.
Yeah.
Sounds
We make amazing things.
Yeah, and also I think it's really cool how the information isn't so scientific. Like it's tailorized for a young demographic of people, so it would be easy to understand for even young people who just want to learn about sex or how to navigate their sex lives and all of that.
But also adults who are looking to teach about sex.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like tips that you can use to talk to young people about sex.
Yeah. Or even parents who are too afraid to tell their children about the bees.
And
About
the
butt
birds.
manners.
Or a refresher course.
Yes. And they're just like, you're having sex, here's the app. Learn.
Or you're just curious, like what's new? I want to
Yeah,
see.
what's out there?
Yeah, definitely. That's a plug.
You know, one thing that I am so appreciative about being like a feminist, right?
Yeah.
Is that feminism has created sort of this space for me to openly talk about sex, learn about it, not feel ashamed. Like it's made me feel very comfortable about my body. Like there's a very big difference between me at 14 who's like running from the shop to home because I don't want anyone to see me with my camera pads, right? That I just bought.
Double wrapped
To
in
like
black
me
plastic.
now who would enter like a store, pick up like my pad and just walk around with it without even like
Yeah.
a basket, right? Without even caring like, oh, do you need a plastic? No, I don't need a plastic.
fine.
I'm fine, right? There's a difference between me at like 20 who goes to whisper in a thing, pharmacy, like, I'm asking for a pregnancy test. To me now, who's like, hi, do you have pregnancy test? No, can I see that one? Show me the different types, right? And I think it's
Right.
because of like feminism, being around like sexually liberated women and actually learning and understanding that it's my pleasure and it's my body and I should take full control of it. And nobody should dictate how I feel. Like, why are you bringing shame in my pleasure? There's
Come
nothing,
on now.
there should be nothing shameful about pleasure, right?
Can't shame the
As long as it's not
shameless.
harming anyone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like my question to everyone is, what would you have like wanted for your like sexual journey, right? For your body autonomy, as you have been like exploring sexuality and pleasure, what would you have wanted for you? I'll start with Hazel.
Okay. I think lack of judgment. I did say that I did most of my research online, but like I wish people understood, like older people maybe at clinics and parents understood that just because I'm asking about sex doesn't mean I'm actually engaging in it. Maybe I just want to know so that I'm prepared for when I'm actually ready to. I just want to be knowledgeable about it.
You know what I would have liked?
Yeah.
For an older woman to tell me it's okay to think what you're thinking, it's okay to feel what you're feeling around sex, and it's okay to ask questions. I think that's what I would have liked. It would have sorted out so many things because the imaginations when the hormones are running wild, and then I feel like I shouldn't be feeling like this. Or I feel like because my body is feeling this way, I'm sinning and all of that. So I would have liked for someone older than me to say, you will feel this way and you will think this way and you might have these dreams, and it's not a spiritual husband. Yeah, I think I would have liked that sort of reassurance and affirmation.
Yeah. I think mine is very similar to Tendai's. I think that the inherent shame that came with being a young woman and your body changing, whether it's going to the store to buy what you need, whether it's just being curious, like I would have loved for the shame to just be removed, you know, and just say, it's normal, it's fine, it's okay. It's very reassuring, and it's very, especially in a community of women, it's very validating. And for
Yes.
me, I would have loved that. It wasn't until I was getting married that I started to actually see a community of women behind you to be like, oh, this is normal and these things happen.
Yeah.
So as a young woman, I would love a version of that. But like for that age to say, it's not a bad thing. You're not a bad person. It's not bad manners. You know, like just that validation would have helped.
No, I get it. I feel like for me, it's almost tied to like Tendai, right? As an older daughter, I wished I had a big sister, right? And that's why I started Sister Sister, because I wanted to create an organization. I wanted to create an organization that was a big sister to young women. Like, you are experiencing period poverty. What would your big sister do for you if you went to her and said, I don't have pads? She helps you get pads, right?
See the pads.
If you went to your big sister and told her, look, there's this weird older man that keeps following me around. What do you
Go beat
think?
him up.
Yes. Me, I was the type of sister who go follow and yell, right? But like, also even questions around like, all my friends are dating men who are 27 and we're 15. What does that look like, right?
Driver.
Having that honest conversation with my young sister and telling her, you know, a man this age, he's just looking to manipulate you. He could date women his age, but there's a reason he isn't. There's nothing like, he shouldn't lie that you've matured, that you're special. Yeah, what? Yes, you are special, but not special enough for an older man to take advantage of you, right?
Sure.
So I would have wanted that. I would have, like, there were so many questions and I was such a curious kid. I would have loved it to have an older sister to just take me step by step by step. And that's why even when you look at our programs at Sister Sister, they're very much older sister vibes, right? We're not your very strict bureaucratic NGO. We're creating feminist festivals for you. Imagine like your older sister throws you a cool, nice party. That's kind of like what we do. Your older sister sitting down and talking to you about sex. And even when you think about the app that we've created, the Feminist Sport app, it's your older sister saying, look, you have all these questions about your body and you're a bit clueless, you don't understand, you're stressed, you want answers. Let me design something for you to get all these answers. I genuinely would have wanted that.
You know what I'm getting from this?
Yeah.
Like a safe space.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the S in Sister Sister sounds But yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, just like even as we come to the end of this topic, right? I feel like we are both feminists in our very like different niches, different things that we're like either learning, growing, and you know, the whole shebang. I feel like, what do you think that we as feminists need to do? Because there is like a war on our bodies currently, from sexual violence to, you know, restricting sexual reproductive health rights. Sexual reproductive health right laws are constantly being threatened. What do you think as feminists should do? And like from a generational point of view, from young, older, middle, wherever we are, heck, even people in their grave, if they want, they can join this fight, right? The ancestors. Like, what do you think we need to be doing? I'll start with you, Yande.
I think for me, we need to get ready. Like, I feel like things that we used to take for granted, we just can't let slide anymore, especially when it comes to our bodies and our right to choose. I personally, from a legal perspective, would love to see more feminist lawyers. I can count them on one hand.
Joining you soon.
Please, like, I will be welcome. Like, the more, like, I just feel like the system is designed a certain way, and we need more voices to kind of band together and just call out some of these things that perpetuate a bit of violence against women, even in our spaces. Like, you don't have to be a lawyer to do some of these things. It can be at a dining table when you hear some opinions that are a bit too, you know, just stand up and say, hey, women have rights to this and this and that also. I'm like, you know, I just feel like the more we're sitting in our little silos and being silent and not speaking up is when the wave is getting more powerful. It's getting more stronger. So I think we need to suit up. We need more soldiers. We need more feminists in these spaces. We need more feminist doctors as well. That's a huge issue. So I just think that, I know I'm trying to like recruit, sorry, shameless recruit. But I just think that if you believe in something and you believe in human rights and you believe in people's rights, just advocate for that one person. It can go a long way outside of just pleasure politics, just human rights in general. How are you standing up for women in your community? So I think that's the one. It's a lot of pressure, but that's my one ask. Like, let's see how we can push equality in our small lives and communities and silos.
Yeah, like Yanda said, let's get information. I think for me, it's because I'm dramatic. It's literally a fight for our lives. Every day we wake up could be the last day that we wake up, only because we are women. So I feel like, as parting words, because I feel like that's what we're doing now, we need to just wake up every day and resist in however way we can. Resist if it's the auntie saying you need to sit a certain way because you're a lady. Yeah, resist that day. You might be at the front line in the next 10 years fighting for human rights. So I think it's a clarion call to all young women, to older women, to all women to make space. And I say make space, but make a safe space, and realize that the only thing that the patriarchy gives us is privilege, not actual power. Yeah.
Can we get that on a t-shirt?
I think I'm gonna ride off of Yande's answer a little bit. Like, we have to understand our right to choose. And part of that choosing is also choosing to not have sex.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really important to understand yourself. So if you think you're ready for sex, then you're ready, and that's fine. But if you're not, that's also okay. You can take your time and not have sex. Please just don't be peer pressured into doing anything. So that's also part of you choosing, and bodily autonomy and pleasure, because then you're finding pleasure in not doing things you don't want to do.
I think on my end, I would say we need an army. I feel like it's specifically during the time of like when X was Twitter. I mean, it's still Twitter, but under like Jack's management, right? It sort of created this illusion that the feminist crowd was like this huge mob, when in actual fact, we're a very small number. We're a very small group of people who are genuinely fighting to ensure that some of these progressive laws stay in place, and some of these like very unprogressive laws like come out, right? And it can get very lonely, very discouraging to be in that space and just feel like, why are we just the 10 of us when there are a billion women on this planet, right? Why even the idea of when we even get male allies, why do we have to like roll down on the ground and be very grateful at the idea that a man thinks I'm a human being, right? I feel like we need to get to a point where we need to seriously start recruiting people. We need that that illusion mob that people think that we had. That's clearly after. It's now X. It's now a completely different story. We now we disappeared. We disappeared. Where we're back to what we have always been, the marginalized, right? Mm-hmm. The very small group of people who are consistently fighting for human rights. So it's important that we all join. I think it's very selfish in this day and age to know that you have the power to change and to sit and wait for other women and people to create the change that you hope to see, right? Mm. You will go to, like, in a country like Zambia, you can go for contraceptives for free. What if tomorrow you go and contraceptives are not free? They're cutting funding. Yeah. What are you going to do? How are you going to hold your governments accountable? Because that's expensive, right? And that brings about it's a barrier from you enjoying sex and having this pleasurable life, because it means you will get pregnant if you cannot afford contraceptives, right? There's so many laws around, there's so many systems that we should not take advantage, right? We need what's that thing in Game of Thrones? My watch has ended. Your watch has now begun.
Watch has begun.
Please
Let us
do that.
began. Let our watch
Do
begin.
that.
Let us build the war, you know?
Yeah.
Let us actively fight and create like a feminist world that everybody enjoys, and let us not sit and hope for the best and let others do the work, because it's draining and it's exhausting. So yeah, I think that's it for the feminist spot.
Oh, till next time.
Next week.
Love is here for days.